The amorality, depravity, corruption, ignorance, and contempt for truth of Donald Trump are without parallel in the history of the American presidency. Trump's rivals, James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, Warren G. Harding, Richard Nixon, and George W. Bush, to name a few, all had one or two redeeming qualities. Trump has none, unless you count incompetence, which sometimes mitigates the damage. Trump's vileness has manifested itself in too many ways to count, but there's one that stands out because it reflects his character so intimately and because it imposes such an elemental, universally understandable kind of suffering. I'm talking, of course, about the deliberate, intentional cruelty of separating children, including very small, very helpless, very bewildered, utterly blameless children, and even infants, wrenching them from their parents or guardians as a matter of official policy. But if the cruelty is America's shame, the reporting that has exposed that cruelty is America's pride. Jacob and Julia and their on-camera colleagues are the faces of coverage, but behind them is the reach and power of NBC News. Television news is a group effort. To bring a big human story to the small screen with its sights and sounds, its voices and faces, and to do it in a timely manner in a medium where all news is breaking news requires more than a village. It takes a skyscraper. Specifically, in this case, 30 Rock. Some of the denizens of that non-Trump tower are with us tonight. You'll find their names on page 9 of your program. There are many individual journalists and many news organizations in every medium, print, broadcast, online, and nonprofit, that have earned gratitude and respect for their efforts, and we wish we could honor them all. That said, this year's Hillman Prize for Broadcast Journalism is fully deserved. It goes to Jacob Soboroff and Julia Ainsley and their colleagues at NBC News and MSNBC for their vivid and resourceful frontline coverage of the unending and harrowing saga of child abuse and anti-family values at the border. They tell their story with empathy for all concerned, for the children and the parents, of course, but also for the overstretched caregivers and teachers and nurses and cops who are trying against the odds to soften the cruelty. Well, sympathy for almost all concerned, for the administration officials whose idea of a deterrent is a toddler in a cage, maybe not so much. Will you please welcome them to the stage, and may I ask all those who have worked on this project at NBC and MSNBC to please stand and let the audience show their gratitude toward you while Julia and Jacob make their way.
Thank you to the Hillman Foundation, and especially thank you to the judges. You are all journalistic idols of mine, and I have to admit this is pretty cool. So thank you very much for this honor. Congratulations, of course, as well to our fellow Hillman Prize recipients. Your work is extraordinary and so important, and being a part of this with all of you is really incredible. The reason we're here tonight is not incredible. In fact, tonight is actually a very terrible anniversary of sorts. Exactly 1 year ago today, May 7th, 2018, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions publicly launched the Trump administration's zero-tolerance family separation policy. This is what he said: "If you are smuggling a child, then we will prosecute you, and that child will be separated from you as required by law. If you don't like that, then don't smuggle children over our border." But after that, if you asked other members of the administration about this policy, the one that Julia, by the way, reported that the administration was considering before anybody else in March of 2017, that is not what you ever heard. Kirstjen Nielsen said there was no family separation policy. The president said Democrats came up with it, and those were lies. And I know that because I saw what they did with my own eyes. First, inside that 250,000 square foot former Walmart where kids are allowed outside for 2 hours a day, And then inside the epicenter of separations where babies were in cages on concrete floors, under Mylar blankets, being supervised by a security contractor in a watchtower. I will never forget that. Even though the president ended separations by executive order just days later because he said he didn't like the images he was seeing on television or the audio that he heard on the internet, it kept going. And the cruelty, as Adam, our fellow honoree, would say, was the point. And the evidence exists today to back that up, by the way. We now know they never had a plan to put those kids back together with their parents, and we know now there may be thousands more kids the government never told us about, and they separated them before the zero-tolerance policy went into place. They are still today, right now, working to find those children. And we know all of that because of the work of countless journalists, but I want to single out and thank the ones that I work with, that we work with every single day. Betsy Corona, Arnie Hakel, and Mitch Koss, the producers that I work with, are here tonight. And literally dozens of colleagues, here they are, from NBC News and MSNBC. All of their names are listed with ours because this award belongs to them as well, from working from both sides of the border, without whom the work we did would not be possible. Not just Arnie, Mitch, and Betsy, but many of them are here tonight, so please give it up for them again. And there is one person in particular who deserves my greatest debt of gratitude, and she's standing right next to me. Her name is Julia Ainsley. She is the greatest reporting partner and teacher and friend that I could ask for. She is selfless, she is rigorous, and she is a damn good reporter. So thank you to the, give it up for Julia. You're going to hear from her in a second. Thank you to the Hillman Foundation. Extra special thank you to Julia for allowing me to share this journey, which unfortunately is not over, with you. And now the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. And the feeling is mutual. It's wonderful to work with you. Funny enough, Jacob and I actually did not meet until about 3 months after this policy ended, because we were at different ends of the country. He was at the border, I was in DC, and we were working on this rigorously, and finally met and have shared our experiences. Jacob was at the border. You saw where he was that summer hot. I was in an air-conditioned office in DC, which is, I'm sure, a lot more comfortable, but it had its own difficulties. What I did was the data and the source work of this reporting, and I want to thank the sources, the people who we will never name, the people who risked their jobs to counter the narrative that their boss's boss's boss were telling. Like Jacob points out, this administration said that there was no family separation policy. Even when we had documents that said that was not the case, we would have people from the administration calling us saying, you cannot believe what is before your own eyes. So people risked their careers, they put everything on the line to stay in the shadows, to not have their names out there, but give us documents, give us narratives. Here's some of the things that they shared. First, in February of 2017, an asylum officer went to a meeting and took notes. These notes said that there was a plan underway, under consideration, to separate women from their children crossing the border. This was purely to prevent them from seeking asylum. That asylum officer passed this along to an immigration lawyer who happened to have gone to law school with my high school prom date sister. And that's how I got that. So you never know where you'll find a tip or a source. Then at that point, we were told, of course, this is a scare tactic. They want you to publish this. It will never come out. And I should say, I reported that for Reuters, my former colleagues who are here. Then flash forward, we're at NBC, and this is actually becoming reality. Although the Trump administration is still denying it has happened, then comes another source with a document that says there are actually children between the ages of 0 and 12 who are being held longer than 72 hours, which is longer than adults are even supposed to be held in these facilities like the one that Jacob went into, where people are kept in cage-like conditions. We've gone on, we've now reported through more documents, we've countered more narratives. There was a narrative that 4,000 terrorists were crossing the border every year. We got the document that said, actually, in the first half of 2017, only 6 people on a terrorism database crossed the border, not 4,000, and those people were not convicted terrorists. We go on each day trying to get the facts, the data, and the people who make this story real in order to counter the narratives, to hold truth to power. That's what makes me excited to come to work every day. That's what makes me excited to work with Jacob, our team, Betsy, Dan, my editor, Rich Greenberg, the investigations team at NBC. And it is so great to work with these people who know how to bring these stories to life. I was a print reporter. I don't know the first thing about the people who stand behind the camera. They're people who bring these things on air. But I'm so grateful for them every day because I think this is a human story. And when we tell it with faces and with real stories, as well as combined with these data and documents, we've got something really rich, and it brings truth and light into a place of great darkness. So thank you so much to the Hillman Foundation. Thank you.